Welcome back to Purple Bloom Podcast with Lauren and Alisha, and here we are for episode 2. So, thank you for coming back to our podcast today. We have a really fun podcast planned for you guys, and some really fun things that we want to talk about, things that we want to share about our experiences, about BTS, about the experiences that we've seen in kind of our communities and things like that, all centered around content creation. Yes. So we wanted to start off with, well, actually I have it up here. So why don't we start off with the quote that I have. So this is from the Esquire magazine, and this is that BTS were featured in. And Yoongi says a little something that I wanted to share with everyone. I shared it with Alisha right before this podcast, and she liked it, so we're going to share with the class. It starts off with, they're talking about, Jin starts off and he says, "I think it's enough to get respect from people who support us. It's similar everywhere else in the world. You can't like everyone, and I think it's enough to be respected by people who really love you." And then Suga agrees. "You can't always be comfortable, and I think it's part of life. Honestly, we are not used to getting a ton of respect from when we first started out. But I think that it gradually changes, whether it be in the States or other parts of the world, as we do more and more." I just really liked that. I think it speaks to how creation is now, and it's a growing process.
I especially like the part where Yoongi talked about being comfortable. That's why me and Lauren decided to include it in the podcast, because especially for content creators, being comfortable is a really nice place to be, but sometimes you have to be uncomfortable to actually create your best work. And not unrelated to content creation, but in teaching for me is really uncomfortable. And I am a human, so I love being comfortable. And sometimes it's hard to be in that space of uncomfortableness. Even though you know it's good for you and you know you're growing because of it, it's still uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I think about BTS's experience and then relate it back to my life, they literally left their houses when they were little kids. I mean, little kids, Jungkook was 14 or something like that when he left his home in Busan for Seoul, the big city. And that's must have been incredibly uncomfortable. But if he wouldn't have done that, we wouldn't have BTS.
And I even think back to the fact that they all had to audition, excluding a few members. Few members didn't have to audition, but particularly, I think about Yoongi having to audition, and we know how shy Yoongi is. But when Yoongi went to audition, even when he made the decision to go to Seoul, that was probably a very uncomfortable thing to get up and pour his soul out to this camera and hope that it's going to work out and they're going to like him. So even on the journey to their successes, there were many moments where they had to be uncomfortable too.
Absolutely. And it's you can't, the lesson that I kind of learned from it is you can't really do anything great just being comfortable. And I'm a Taurus, so that's all, I am all about being comfortable, you were saying, and being pushed out of my comfort zone. I resent that, do not like that. But at the same time, if you there's no way to grow, and if you're not growing, then how is that flower gonna bloom?
We should preface this by saying we're earth signs.
Yes, we should. Yeah, we should.
We love being comfortable.
Exactly, which is why it's even more kind of meaningful to us, I guess, or more of a big deal, I guess I should say, when we do push our boundaries and when we do step out of our comfort zone and do things like start a podcast or do things like teach full time and get the education for it, or do an Instagram live for work or something like that.
Even going back to work, even just asking for a raise, asking for things in general, are super uncomfortable. But if you know you're owed it, you know you deserve it, you've got to do it.
Yeah. I feel every time Alisha and I every time I tell Alisha about like my work stuff, she's always like, you need to ask for a raise. And then I'm like, I do. But it's like, it's uncomfortable to bring that conversation up.
It really is.
You know, especially, you know, I think that kind of touches on also being a woman in the workplace too, because it's, you know, I don't know how different it is for men in the workplace because I'm not a man, but I do think that at least, you know, my two jobs are very important, and I don't think that I'm replaceable necessarily in both of my jobs, or like as easily replaceable as I think that I am, you know, but it's hard sometimes to like go into work and like think like, you know what, they actually need me here, you know, and like I'm doing something that really brings a lot of value to not just my coworkers, but the company itself and like the people who I'm interacting with, you know, and like to kind of have that mindset and go into asking for a raise.
Like you said, we're not men, so we can't speak to that experience. But even in previous jobs that I've had, being a woman, especially if your boss or your superiors are mostly male, is kind of a weird position to be in if you're not a very confident person in your skills or in your abilities or things like that. I think it's a little hard to ask for certain things.
Yeah. And what you said there about being confident in your skills and abilities is like right on the money there. Because I feel like with girls, it's like, I don't know what it is, but it's like sometimes we kind of like brush our skills and confidence and like, you know, our abilities like under the rug a little bit because we don't want to step on anyone's toes. You know, I don't know. It's just from my experiences, at least, like generally people aren't going to, you know, you could do that to yourself, but the men in the workforce aren't going to do that, you know?
Right. And honestly, the women who I see who really own their skills and their craft sometimes get negative labels because people are like, oh no, she's bitchy. Yeah. Or like, we don't like her. And there's totally nothing wrong with what she's doing. She just happens to be a woman and not a man.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then maybe that's where that kind of wanting to like keep our skills and talents like under the rug a little bit, like keep them to ourselves. Maybe that's where it kind of comes from. I absolutely agree with that. Kind of bouncing off of that too, I want to like talk about my experience as a YouTuber, as a female YouTuber. So I have a YouTube channel. It's called Lady Lauren, if you want to look me up. But I teach ukulele, right? So I make little like, you know, 3 to 6 minute videos on YouTube going through like chords, strumming, just teaching like how to play a song. And I'm not the only one that does that. There's a lot of others YouTubers who also teach on the platform. But there is one ukulele teacher, and he's literally called the Ukulele Teacher. I think that that's like actually his name on YouTube, and he's huge. And he started well before me. Like I learned ukulele from him, and then I started doing my own thing about songs that I wanted to learn. You know, like I wanted to making tutorials about the songs that I would want to learn, right? But I was noticing but when I was comparing both of our channels, and when I was looking around to see what kind of, you know, what kind of content people were creating in my field to try and better my own content. And I noticed that his videos were so positive. The comment sections were so positive, and they were so like, we love you, you're helping us so much, and yada, yada, yada. And nobody said anything. He like sings off tune in his videos, and nobody said anything about that. But if you look back on my videos and you look at the comment section on my videos, there are positive comments, and those positive comments kept me going. Like, don't get that twisted. Like those are the positive comments are, you know, they're priceless. But the negative comments were much greater on my video than on his. And it was pointing out things like, oh, you can't sing, or like, oh, you're not even playing that well, or like,
wow,
oh, you're just like ugly, you should die, you know, things like that.
Lauren, I did not know this. I'm about to fight some people on YouTube. Hold on.
Oh, I know. Well, that's just like the life of being a YouTuber. You're going to get those haters. Wow. But it was just interesting how I was doing the same exact thing as him, and I was getting more hate for it. And the only difference I can think of was that I'm a woman and that he's a man, you know?
That's really, and I'm not a YouTuber, so I can't speak to that experience, but I'm not sure I would ever want to be on the platform if people were like, you should just go die. Like, I think I would give it up. And I now understand why YouTubers would actually give it up.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah, because it's heavy. It's a hard job. But I mean, like, that things like that comes along with being any kind of like influencer. Like, I don't consider myself an influencer, but when you do get like more of a following, you know, things like that start to roll in because, you know, people start seeing you as like something that's not human. You're just someone who like kind of creates, which, you know.
Yeah, I feel really sad that is to be expected. Yeah. Like the way you said that is like, oh, it just comes with the territory. And I'm like, right. Oh, but what if it didn't?
But what if it didn't? But must it be so?
What if we didn't have like nasty trolls out there?
I know.
Because we shouldn't, truly. I mean, freedom of speech, but goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you can say what you want to say, but you can say it in a kind way, you know? I agree. And maybe that fault lies with the platforms itself, you know, like the social media platforms not cracking down on that kind of behavior. Things started getting better once I started moderating my comments and like deleting all the negative comments, but they still like roll in. So it's like, you know, it's interesting. Like, is that the only difference? And then also it kind of like is fueling this kind of thought in my head. Cause this is just a thought. This is a theory. This isn't, I'm not saying that this is why or anything like that. But well, I was looking at the YouTubers that I watch, the YouTubers that like are on my subscription box and things like that I like watch daily and things, they're all men. When Jenna Marbles left the platform, they were all men. And I was like, this is weird. Like, I'm not supporting any female creators, right? So I went out and like, I made it a plan. I've subscribed to a whole bunch of female creators, but I was just like, I wonder if that kind of plays a part in it too. Like, I don't know.
That's interesting.
Yeah, maybe we're just more harsh in judgment of women, like in media or just in general than we are of men.
I think it is a societal thing, at least here in the U.S., because this is where we are. Yeah. But I think it's a societal thing. We tend to judge women really harshly here. Yeah. Versus men. Men kind of get away with like basically everything. Yeah. And yet if a woman were to do that, their career would be done.
Absolutely.
But that's really interesting that you said that you followed a lot of male creators, because I actually follow almost exclusively women creators.
Really? I love that. We love that energy. That's awesome.
It wasn't even on purpose. Like I didn't go out there and say I want to follow women. It was just they happened to find me and I'm like, oh, I really like their content. And yeah, I followed for that.
That is awesome. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. That's really, I love that. We love that energy. Women support women all day.
But that's really interesting that you brought that up. I wonder how many other people feel that way too, that are YouTube creators. Like, yeah, like have other YouTube creators out there ever like looked into like you did, like what you did, some other person who's also in their field and like what kind of feedback they get?
Well, there was something that happened the other day. It was with TikTok, like, so same idea, but just like different platform. And it was something with Charli D'Amelio's family. So, you know, the biggest TikToker on the platform, or one of the biggest TikTokers on the platform. And she did like a little family vlog with her family. And then she was acting like a little ungrateful for her followers, and then her sister was acting like ungrateful for the food or something like that. And then that was a whole chaotic mess, and then people started unfollowing her for it. And I was like, whoa, like just me personally looking at the situation, watching the video, seeing the comments, you know, I was like, if a man did that, completely different story, completely different reaction, you know, socially. So yeah, I think it would be really interesting to see if any YouTuber is listening to this podcast and you want to share your experience, just let us know. Our email is in the description. Send us an email. We'd love to hear your experience on that.
Absolutely. If anyone is a content creator in general, like you can definitely share with us your experiences, because, you know, we can only speak about our own experiences.
Exactly. But with the social media, though, you're not really, Alisha, you're not really on social media too much, are you?
I really dislike being on social media.
You dislike it all.
I only have a Twitter, and I like to say that it's because my social anxiety extends to social media.
Oh.
It's not just an in-person thing. For me,
Yeah.
I feel really self-conscious when I post. So if you're ever on my Twitter, like I never post anything. I always retweet or I like. I'm not the kind of person who posts about my life. So that's just me.
Is that something like you're afraid of how it'll be received or what people will think of you kind of because of that?
Yeah. And it started back in Facebook because I had Facebook back when it was still kind of young. Like 2008 is when I got on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
Which seemed like a long time ago now.
It's like 12 years ago or 13. Oh, dear.
It was a long time ago now. But that was the year I graduated high school.
Oh, wow.
So Facebook was still fairly new.
Uh-huh.
And I remember posting on there and having like people comment and like, at least as far as my family goes, my family is not, we like to joke a lot, but they're kind of mean jokes. Oh. Like they can be taken personally.
Yeah.
And I took them all personally. So I didn't like being on Facebook in particular for that reason.
I gotcha.
And that like experience influenced all of my other social medias. So like, that's also the reason I don't post on Instagram. And the reason I don't post on Twitter. Mm-hmm. So if anyone's out there and like you don't think that social anxiety can extend to social media, it certainly can.
Yeah, that's like a really interesting thing to think about too, like how social media extends or social anxiety extends to social media. Because it is the same, that you're dealing with the same people you deal with in real life, right? Mm-hmm. Like the only difference is that you're not seeing them in person, which I'm sure to some people it helps. Like for me, that helps, not, having to be physically with another person and just like being able to like message them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because they can just ignore the message.
I also feel like you can, and that is nice to be able to ignore things. I feel like it's easier now for people to feel like they have the right to say whatever they want to.
Yeah.
On like, especially now on social media. So that's also why I tend to avoid it. Because I feel like in my head, if I feel like someone would disagree about what I wanted to say, I wouldn't post what it is that I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Of course, that's everyone's own prerogative. You are allowed to post whatever you want to on social media. It's your social media. But
you don't want that like confrontation at the end of the day, because then you're going to have to respond to them.
Yeah.
And then that's a rift.
Well, I don't really respond to people. I'm not the kind of person who engages. If I really don't care what someone says, I just move on.
Oh, yeah. That is very Alisha. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just your 30s, guys. If you're not in your 30s yet, you've got a lot to look forward to, I promise.
Oh, yes, yes. You got to make it to that third decade, and then it'll all be good. Oh.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah.
But I mean, you have even faced backlash on your Twitter from certain things that you've posted.
Oh, all the time. Yeah. Just a little bit. Like, you can follow me on Twitter if you want. I'm Lady Hobie. And I think Hobie is like a cute little guy. And I tweet about that. I tweet that he's really cute and lovely and sweet and good. But some people kind of view him as the opposite of that, which is totally fine. And I respect that. But I get a lot of hate because, I'll tweet that and then maybe people take it like personally or something like that. And then they'll like quote retweet and say like very mean things like, I don't know, that like don't even, without even like understanding that like, my content is there for the people that want my content, and it can just like very easily be ignored by people who don't want that content. Like you can block me if you don't want that content. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Well, it's just like, that backlash, but sometimes like, I wish I could be like you though, and like just kind of ignore it. But sometimes like I can't, I'm just like, I have to follow up with something here.
I mean, I think it depends on who you are. And like, there are definitely things that I would respond to if I wanted to respond to them and if they made me feel a certain way. But
yeah, True.
And I think the people who do respond to certain things, like, are right in the way that they respond. Because sometimes people do need to be called out.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like you said, and I think it's just like the BTS Twitter space.
Yeah.
That certain people just, I don't know, they really feel entitled. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's just a personality thing. My personality is, like you said, if I don't like content, I either mute the person, block them, unfollow them. I'm not, like, aggressive in what I'll do. I'm not going to quote retweet and be like, hey, I hate your content. Like, no, that's so much energy that I don't care to waste. So, but I think at least the BTS Twitter space tends to get a little crazy with their entitlement.
Yeah, I think so too. And also, like, a distinction too between, like, what you were going through on Facebook and, like, this Twitter BTS environment is, like, these are strangers. We don't know them also, you know? I mean, some of them, like, bloom to be really good friends and people that, like, are your closest buddies, like how you and I met. But, you know, some of them you're just going to talk to every now and then and you'll never, like, really link up again.
Right.
But it's, like, it's just this little community that I have at least found myself really vibing with and really, like, finding myself in. It's given me a lot of confidence. But at the same time, like you said, it's like you have those downsides to this community that if it's personality or maybe it's generational, something, you know, something's different. But, you know, it's like respect. Like,
we've been focusing, I know, we've been focusing on all the negatives. Like, BTS Twitter has been a great experience in many, many ways. I love being on Twitter when things drop, music videos, debuts, premieres, like, that's, like, when I have the most fun on Twitter. And like you said, we met on Twitter.
Yeah.
Like, I have great friends who I've met through Twitter. It's just, there can be times where you have to curate your space.
Absolutely.
Almost like how you would curate your room. You're like, oh, I like this better than I like this. Okay. And it's your space. So.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Whether it's, like, finding people that are, you know, over 18 to be friends with, or whether it's finding people that kind of think the same way as you or vibe with you, or, you know, people who you look up to. And also, like, a big positive of the community was, like, I was able to, like, do that whole BTS zine. I did, like, a soap zine with BTS. And that was, like, a homegrown grassroots kind of, like, in that community, in that little soap community, which is, like, a subset of the big BTS community. And we raised almost $3,000 for charity on that.
Which is so wild.
Yeah, right? Like, it's just, like, mind-boggling. And then we did another zine, and we made even more money with that. And that went to the artist and the writers, and then me and Ash, the girl who I worked with on it. It was, like, a little small business thing, right? But but it was, like, a small business within this small community, so it felt very comfortable in a sense. Like, everything that I was doing, it didn't push me too much out of that comfort zone that we were talking about. It felt comfortable because it was in that community that I already felt so comfy in, and that I already, like I said, like we said, like, found myself in. But at the same time, it also, you know, gave me that circle of comfort to really push my boundaries and, you know, figure out, like, how do I even, like, start a little, like, kind of business like this? Like, how do I get it manufactured? How do I market it? How do I, you know, organize everything? And
tell us more about that, because I remember you, like, having to find publishers, having to do proofs, having to do, like, figure out how to mail these things international. Like, this really was, like, it probably seemed on the surface like, yes, this would be so easy, and it was probably anything but.
Right? It does seem really easy, right? Like, all you have to do is get some writers, get some artists together, ask them to make something, put it in a book, sell it, right? Easy peasy, right? No. And Alisha probably knows this, like, the most, because I always complain to her about everything that went wrong in the whole thing. I would call her and complain. But I had a really good partner in it, and she made, like, the graphics, and she talked to some of the artists, and she would also put the zine together like in Canva. But then I would do like everything else. So I would take the book and I would like research like publishers and things like that. And I ended up with Barnes and Noble Press, and they have like, if you're wanting to start a zine, I would recommend Barnes and Noble Press. They are the bomb. So I put it in through there, and then I like edit everything. And the first time we did it, oh my God, it was such a headache because I couldn't get the proof to work, or I couldn't get the actual document to work with the press. But, you know, after like hours and days of like tweaking it, fixing it, you know, when you're starting this, you don't have like a system. You're making that system as you go. Right. And that does not just like fall in place. That takes time, that takes effort, it takes trial and error the most out of everything. Right. Which is what I did. And, you know, then you order a proof, it doesn't look good, so you fix it up, do it again, order another proof, doesn't look the best, you can get it right there. So then, you know, keep doing that. And then that's how you get the physical product. This last time we did the zine, we had little stickers and we had little like photo cards and a postcard too. So you gotta like organize all that, talk to some people. I went through Alibaba, and I'm like a big person. Like Alisha, you know this. I'm a big person for like, I want to see how these things are being manufactured, and I want to make sure that it's like ethical, and that I can I can sleep easy at night knowing that this is being made, you know, in an ethical way, I guess, like not taking advantage of people. And these stickers were, so I was like, they showed a video of their whole factory. I felt very comfy with working with them, and the lady who I worked with was really nice. So that's how we got the stickers developed. Everything that I set up to now is like 1/3 of what I had to do, and that took so long. Then from there, you have to mail it out. Right. And that takes a couple of days when you have a lot of orders. It's like, oh, wow, it's so dainty and fun to get like an order. But then it's like when you actually do it and you have like 100 orders, it's like, it's cute for the first like 5 minutes. And it's like, but then it's like, oh my God, really, really tiring, you know?
How much time do you think you spent on the different phases of creation? So like, how much time do you think you spent on creating the actual zine? Yeah. And then how much time do you think you spent on like shipping out the zine? What's your estimate?
That's a really good question. There was like a point in time where I thought about like, there's like 3 phases. I think I told you about that too. Like phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Phase 1 would be getting everything together. So like talking to the artist, getting them to give us their artwork and their writings and stuff. And then also like me and my friend who I worked with in this, we also wrote a piece for this scene, so we also have to have that done. So that's like not a lot of time at all, really. Maybe like if I was going to put it in a time frame, maybe like 5 to 6 hours organizing, and then maybe like 4 to 5 hours for me to write my own piece. So that's like 12 hours or something like that. So that would be phase 1. And then phase 2 is marketing, putting it together, and then it's the hardest phase. It's making it a thing and making sure people know that this is a thing, you know? Right. So we marketed this last book so much, and that took a lot of time. Like I would qualify that as like days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Cause I was like working, but I was also like making polls, and I was like making edits. I was running the Twitter, but I also like had 2 jobs at the time. I still have 2 jobs, but it's like, it's hard to juggle everything, you know? So that was like a lot of time to market it. But then I also was like putting it through the press and then ordering it. So maybe that would be another 2 days or so. So it was like, you know, not like 2 days specifically, like out of my week, but like, you know, spread out like hourly wise, you know, like I'll work on it a couple of hours here, a couple hours there. And then phase 3, which is like the shipping and the manufacturing. The shipping, or I mean, like, you know, getting everything to come to me is so easy because all I have to do is order it. But then getting everything in the package with everything, writing little notes to everyone because, you know, it's a small business. So, of course, you have to write a thank you note, handwritten, of course. And because we do support, like, we do appreciate every single one. And we want to show that. Right. But that takes time. And then the printing of the labels, you got to buy the labels on PayPal, entering in the addresses and stuff, and then printing that out, cutting it, because I don't have a label printer, so cutting that and then taping it on. Right. And then you just drop it off at the post office. But then you have to actually go through and like add in everyone's tracking numbers and email it out to everyone so that they have that. Right. But then you're done. we're still not completely done with that project though. Because we're still at like the end of the third phase, which is now if there's any problems that arise, we send everyone like another zine for free. Like there was one girl who didn't get her zine, so I had to send her a new one. And then there's another person who, I think it's Dubai, and they didn't get theirs yet. So we're looking at that. We're looking at the tracking. We also have to pay our artists and writers, but I want to wait until more people get their zines first. But then that'll be,
It's a huge undertaking / liability. To do this.
Huge. But you learn so much. Like all the stuff that I just said, I had no idea how to do this time last year. And I would have never done something like this if it wasn't for the comfort that I felt in the BTS community, you know? Like I know that they're going to have my back. I know that they're going to support me because I support them. So it's like that give and take. Like I can do this because I know that at the end of the day, at least somebody's going to support this, you know?
And going back to like the social media stuff, because you were very active on the Soapmate Scene social media.
Yeah.
So I know you had a handle on that. And now that's actually a part of your job. That's one of your jobs that you have to do.
Yeah. And now you mean like an actual job that I get paid for?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. So it did teach me. We don't use Twitter too much. We use Instagram more with that job. But it taught me about content creation, and it was like a really nice, like I put it on my resume. I put like charity project coordinator or something like that. But but I do like tell, like in my interview for that job, I was talking about the things that I did in the Soapmate Scene, but I didn't like name the Soapmate Scene specifically. And if they asked to see something, then I would show them my YouTube account instead of the scene. 'Cause like, you never know how people are going to react to.
Right.
It's a safe for work zine. Like there's nothing, there's nothing bad about it, but you just never know how people are going to react.
And then social media creation is like, it's actually kind of difficult. I mean,
yeah, it's hard.
I don't know how other people do it. I can't run a social media account for anything, but creating social media and like figuring out like the algorithms. I know we talked about that once, like why certain things show up and others don't, and why certain posts get more engagement than others. Like I know, at least in the pin community, because I used to be very deep into the enamel pin BTS community.
Really?
Huge collection.
Oh, yes. I remember that.
I've seen a lot of pin creators like agonize over Instagram, like engagements and why certain things weren't working in their favor. And we speculated on that, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. There was an article that you sent me about Instagram specifically that was really, really interesting. And I think that you even said that one of your enamel pin, that one of the girls that you followed was like, she was dealing with that. And it was that Instagram released like, which these social media platforms do all the time. So Instagram released a new feature, and if you were an account that were not using that new feature, you were already like getting minus points against the algorithm, and if you were using that feature, then you were getting lifted, right? Because, which makes sense when you think about it, like as a business, like Instagram is a business, and they're trying to promote on their business the best accounts that are going to use every feature that they offer, because the more time you spend on that app using all those different features, the more Instagram can hold up against these other social media companies, which means the more that they can charge for their ads. And that's what it's all about. Yeah. That's what it's always been about too.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was interesting when you were talking about Facebook and promoting on Facebook versus using Facebook ads.
Oh, yeah.
That was a super good point.
Yeah. So, I think I realized that when you and I were talking, that was so crazy, because my store, we were thinking about starting some actual paid promotion, right? So you can promote, which is just tweeting or posting, and then you can do a paid promotion, which is going through Facebook ads, which goes through Instagram or Facebook. And if you are just promoting, you're going to get, your regular amount of likes or whatever. But if you're paid promoting, then you're paying to be to beat the algorithm, to be at the top of the algorithm, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as, this is a theory, we should preference it with that, but as soon as Instagram or Facebook realizes that your account is a business account and that you have the funds to market your account, they will, you will go down on the bottom of that algorithm, and they will start promoting and make you think that the only way to promote your media, your sales or your store, your business, is to go through the paid promotion route. That's the hot take that we've been thinking about lately.
But that supports what you said. Like, Instagram and Facebook are businesses. And at the end of the day, they're looking at their best interest. So
exactly.
It might even go back to the fact that, like, when you sign up for a Facebook, you tell it, I am a business versus I am a person. And then they automatically know, okay, so here's the business. Now we know. Yeah. It might be good at the beginning, but then as soon as, like, you hit like a certain mark, things are going to start dropping. Mm-hmm.
And your content might be just fine. It might be amazing content, but it's just the algorithm wants to make money off of you. It's just like, you got to think about these companies like businesses and not like friendly social media community, hosts, I guess.
They've transformed from that many, many years ago. Like, they used to be social media and now they're businesses.
Really? I don't even remember that. Like, that time, that blip in the history.
Maybe that's our generational differences.
Yeah.
Because MySpace was a thing when I was young.
But I love that it used to be like that.
I wonder how that translates on YouTube.
I think it's the same idea, because YouTube wants you to be, like we said, like, these companies, they want you to be on their platform for as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And the longer videos on YouTube are going to be promoted more than the shorter videos, because they want you to be on the platform longer and they want to put more ads on the video for you.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why a lot of YouTubers started going from like do you remember back in the day when YouTube videos used to be like 3-4 minutes long?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And now they're like 10 minutes long. That's why.
Oh, see, we learn things every day.
Yeah. But with YouTube algorithm, like, there's so much up in the air. Like, you don't know, nothing to me makes sense with the YouTube algorithm. I don't think anyone can really figure it out, aside from we know that longer videos do well.
I wonder if these companies don't just like change up their algorithms like month by month and are like, let's just see how this one works this month.
I bet you they do. Yeah, because with TikTok, I was doing so well there. I was like hot commodity there for a second. I got like 25,000 followers and it was really nice. But then, like, all of a sudden, I just started to drop. The numbers started to go down. I was doing TikToks about Namjoon, like thirsting over Namjoon, I guess you could say, as the kids would say, perhaps. But, I wasn't like... I don't know. Maybe I deserved it, but...
TikTok doesn't want you to thirst over Namjoon.
I know. TikTok CEO did not like that one. But, I think that there is, like, definitely changes, though, aside from the Namjoon thirst TikToking. There's definitely, like, changes in what they promote and what they don't promote. It's interesting.
I mean, they have the power to do that, right? Like, they don't even have to tell us what their algorithms are. So
exactly, like, they ain't gotta tell us nothing. But if they did tell us, that wouldn't be good for anyone, because then all the content will be the same.
That's a good point too.
Everyone will try to do the same thing to try and get big,
right? To beat the algorithm.
But to pivot here a little bit, with this kind of creation and with these social media platforms, and with what we were talking about earlier too, about feeling like comfortable posting and comfortable creating content on these social media platforms that run like businesses, there's an element of fear that goes into it. Like, yeah, that, it's uncomfortable to step out of your comfort zone, but there's also like fear that comes with stepping out of your comfort zone that I think stops a lot of us from taking that step of creation within these platforms.
Mm-hmm. And I think that applies to every platform. Like I've seen, I mean, me personally with music, that's how I feel like all the time, which is why I never sit down and make music because it's just getting stuck inside your head sometimes is not a really good place to be as a content creator.
No.
But I've also seen it on many platforms, like on YouTube, on Twitter, for people who write fics, for people who draw. Like, it's kind of a universal experience, almost as an artist, to sometimes be afraid.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. And I think that that's a very natural part of the creation process too, getting in your head and being afraid to create in a sense. But you like brought up a really good analogy. Do you want to share your analogy like with fear and creation?
What was my analogy, Lauren? I don't remember.
About in the car.
Oh, yes. Okay, I remember now. Had to jog that memory.
Yeah.
So this relates back to my anxiety because I have tons of it, an abundance of it.
Yeah.
And actually this...
Anxiety to give.
This analogy came from a book that you gave me, that Lauren gave me, called Big Magic.
Oh, that's right.
And it's a great book. If anyone is like just looking for a really good read, that is a great kind of like self-help book, but not preachy and not like, it doesn't come from a place of negativity, like there's something wrong with you. It just talks about things in a really positive way. So if anyone's looking for that, that's a really great book called Big Magic. And it came from there where the author was talking about like these great ideas that she kept getting, and yet she was afraid to take them. And she kind of put it as like, you know, we're going to go on this road trip and it's going to be her and it's going to be her idea and it's going to be anxiety. And anxiety is going to be in the back seat. Anxiety can't drive the car. Yes. Anxiety can't hold the roadmap. Anxiety has to come along for the ride because we can't leave it behind. You know, in our journey of life, sometimes we can't leave the anxiety behind. It's not something that we are capable. It's a primal instinct. So
yeah, it's natural.
It's not about saying, how do we get rid of this? It's more like, well, how do we bring it along for the journey, but not let it make any decisions? And so that really helped me because, like I said, I have a lot of social anxiety. And then if you think back, like I'm a teacher, those two things kind of don't coincide together. You know, I'm surrounded by kids all day. So I had to, you know, kind of let anxiety take the back seat because anxiety had been driving for years. When I tell you, it took me years and years to be comfortable with staying at a job, with being comfortable with being uncomfortable. So if there's anyone out there who feels like I just keep bouncing from job to job, I can't keep finding the place that I need to be, like look at the different parts of you that have maybe been driving for a little too long. And like I said, don't like throw them out the car. Like that's not going to work. But you know, put them in the back seat. If the back seat's too close, put them in the trunk, you know, like figure out where they can go. But I think that's probably something everyone struggles with. I don't think I'm alone in that.
Yeah.
How do you feel, Lauren? Do you put anxiety in the back seat too?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes she gets up there and she tries to take the wheel. She thinks she owns the car. No. But I agree. It's like, I like what you said about like how we can't leave them behind. Like we literally cannot because they're part of us. And part of having anxiety and part of having any kind of mental illness is, one, how do we cope with it? Two, like how do we, you know, like you saying, how do we live with it? You know, because you can't like cure something like that.
No, I don't think so.
But, you know, I kind of think about it like waves sometimes. Like sometimes anxiety will get really bad and like a wave will come up over the shore and then like it'll get really bad for a second. She'll try to drive that car for a second, but then the wave will come right back out and the sand will be there. It'll be a little wet, but it'll dry. And she's going to go back in that trunk and you're going to lock the trunk again. so she can't get out of there. And then you're going to keep driving, you know, because life goes on. But
yeah,
you know, it's like you said, they both just like, you have to be able to coincide with those kind of things with anxiety and social anxiety, but you cannot let them take over.
Mm-hmm. And I think it works for a lot of different things. I mean,
yeah,
you can make friends with all parts of you. I have parts of me that are controlling. I have parts of me that are musical, that are sometimes depressed. There are all these different parts. And I think it's much easier to go through life making, at least, maybe not making friends with them. Maybe not all of them need to be your friends, but at least hearing them and getting to know them. Because sometimes it's just they want to be heard, and ignoring them isn't going to help, really.
Yeah, I agree.
And I just thought of a quote here from...
bring it up.
Weavers Magazine. We love Weavers Magazine. They did such great interviews with our boys. There was a quote from Jimin that I still love, and it stuck with me. And it was in response to a question about the process of song creation and giving those songs to the fans. And he said, "I learned something new about myself. I'm the kind of person who likes to be loved." And that stuck with me, because isn't that us all? Like, don't we all just want to be loved? And doesn't that sometimes hold us back?
We all just want to be loved. Yeah.
Like, our art is our love. So.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So everyone can be in the car, but, you know, we got to love ourselves first.
Yes. And those of you who weren't here for the Love Yourself era, truly, you need to go back and reintroduce yourself to that, 'cause that was a great era.
Yeah, that really impacted us. We'll have to like do an episode of, you know, just that impact of the Love Yourself era on like us and our friend group.
Yes.
But I think on that note, we should save some stuff to talk about next time. We will continue talking about things like this, the kind of themes. All of this is like kind of experiences in our life, and we're going to keep, you know, kind of overlaying on top of all this stuff as we keep going with all of our podcasts. And again, if you have anything you want to share, if you want to share your own experience, or if you have any feedback or any anything that you want to say on any of the topics that we talked about on this podcast, on other podcasts, anything, just go ahead and send us an email. The email is down in the description below, or you can DM us on Twitter, or message us, whatever you want to do. But this has been episode 2 of the Purple Bloom podcast with Lauren and Alisha.
And we hope we'll see you for the next one.
Yep, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.